Welcome back to It Tells the Two Bros. I am Angel,
I am Adan.
and this is our action review of The Matrix Resurrections. Oh, do we have to do this?
Yeah, he kind of said we had to.
All right, so guys, all right.
There will be heavy spoilers ahead.
So The Matrix came out originally in 1999, and
Mhm.
we have the latest installment, Chapter 4, if you will, Resurrections, which came out
22 years
this.
later. I'm happy it came out for profit. Well, no. I'm happy it came out on stream because it's more convenient, especially today's day and age. But for profit margin for the actors, producers, directors, potentially hurts them more because it's not hitting theaters solo for a while. But I agree after watching it. I'm sorry, guys, you have to take the L.
Well, for my case, I had to see it at home. The time this is being recorded,
Mm-hmm.
I have COVID.
I chose to see it at home out of convenience because of my work schedule.
Maybe it would have been nice to see it on the big screen. Maybe not.
This
So,
one feels like it was made for streaming.
okay. Well, before we go into our action review, I just want to touch on some things real quick. No, because
Let's get these out of the
action
way.
wise, I did like some things about this, and it wasn't because of the action. It was overall the movie. I like the fact that filmmakers and the movie makes fun of itself.
It's very meta in that way.
Kind of like a Spinal Tap kind of thing, where you see it like they're almost like they're making the movie while we're watching. Oh, Spaceballs. There you go. We're
It's a movie
watching the
within a movie
movie.
of the movie.
I did like the fact or the aspect is a matrix within the matrix where Neo or Mr. Anderson has made video game version of the matrix.
And it's a trilogy as well. The characters parallel with what the story is done.
But it was also like a little fine tuning or a little change of characters.
Yeah, refinements, some alterations. The parallels that he was talking about with the real world versus this world is like, and I'm talking about not real world, Matrix real world, our real world. Is like when they tell him, we're going back into the Matrix, baby. We're going to make a Matrix 4. He's like, but I thought we're done. We thought too. But Warner Brothers, they legitimately say Warner Brothers said they're going to do it with or without us.
Hence the joke. Some of the actors has worked with the Wachowskis before, and a lot of them were in the Netflix miniseries Sense8. Tiffany, or Tiffany in this rendition, before she awakens, she makes bikes with a partner. Keanu Reeves makes bikes too. It has a partner, and it's ARC bikes. And you see her; she's riding one of the ARC bikes, which I find is, to me, that's like a deep cut. Did appreciate. But the action in this action, there's about 9 scenes,
Okay.
which is less than original Matrix, less than Reloaded, less than Revolutions.
Wait, Revolutions had more than 9 scenes?
Sorry, it was equal.
But how many minutes total? Because that might be the
Here,
breaking point.
about 27.
Oh, so it was less.
Unless you consider where Trinity is almost shot, you want to consider that, then it'll go way over.
That doesn't count.
No, that's not an action scene at all.
That's a good scene for the monologue.
The longest scene is
The train.
no.
Oh, the beginning.
No, when Trinity wakes up. Trinity wakes up in the coffee shop. From there until
I didn't even consider that escape.
I call it the Great Escape because they're trying to escape
The Matrix
from all the
overall.
Well, no, not Matrix, but the people and the town. For each action scene, I gave my own names for it.
Yeah, to label.
Well, the shortest one was where Agent Smith, Morpheus wake up. They know that the Morpheus side of him needs to.
I'm gonna call him Morpheus Smith. He went through more outfits than Lawrence Fishburne did. Hit all the movies combined. He had a gold. He had this one. He had the agent outfit. Granted, I'm not considering when he was in the Matrix real world. I don't count that because he wasn't changing outfits there. He was just a bunch of orbs. In the actual Matrix, every time like when he was doing the dojo fight scene, he had like this huge kimono thing going on with an open chest.
Again, let's go back to the action. So, do you have 3 favorites, and do you have at least one least? If there is 3.
A few moments later.
I would say I like the fight scene between him and Smith 2.0 when they're in the building, in the warehouse. After they introduced the Frenchman, Neo is starting to show some abilities at that scene. So I'm kind of liking it. And when he does like that run up the wall roundhouse kick and he hits Smith 2.0, he's like, nice one. And then he like pounds the hell out of him and hits him with the kitchen sink.
That was reminiscent to their battle in the subway.
Yes. And this is a running thing through this entire movie. They're reminiscing and they're recapping all three movies in various scenes and homages. And rather than making it its own thing, it's constantly rehashing stuff. But we're getting off subject. That, I would say, is my favorite action scene. Honestly, I don't have three favorites. I have like ones that I'm okay with and ones that I like certain aspects with. My worst action scene, I will say this, was the dojo between him and Morpheus. And it was actually pretty close between that and Morpheus escaping. I mean, I could also make the argument about the end scene with Trini, but that's also because of the storyline.
Which end scene? The one with
the cafe. Not even the cafe. Okay. The helicopters. When like he's like, "Are you flying?" Like, after everything, like he's on the motorcycle. Like they're trying to run away, and he's doing nothing really.
He's force pushing.
Yeah, he's force pushing everybody, and then he's trying to force push these helicopters, and for some reason he's getting less and less power. Like he can't fly. Finally, they decide to take a leap of faith off the building, and he's being held up by her. And I'm like, I know the reason by this point, because in the one scene with Neil Patrick Harris that we referenced, and it was the slow bullet time monologue, they reference why. I just don't like the reason.
What's the reason? Come on, we did our spoilers. We did our spoilers alert.
Yes, the reason is
because probably if you get the reason, I can probably understand too. Because
you still don't understand. You saw it first, and you're like, it's a love story, and I'm like, yeah, all of Matrix is, but no, Neil Patrick Harris is like, I resurrected you guys. I as a project, I had to talk to other people, and like just like a house reno. And he's like, it took twice as long and twice as expensive. He's like, but we couldn't figure out what made you tick, Neo, until we brought her into the equation. And when we resurrected her, that's when we realized the two of you together, explosive things happen. And they show flashbacks between them in the real world. And literally they touch fingertips and like a flash of energy happens, which never happened in the other three. Makes no sense why now she's in this aspect, but whatever. And he's like, but like if they're nearby each other, that's enough to power the city. And because of their energy of emotions that they're expressing, because they're always separated, they can't be together, so they always want to be together, but they can't have to be apart. It's a whole thing,
right? But it kind of like counters the original trilogy.
It does, 100%. I would have been more forgiving if they said, you know what, you were like a god in the original Matrix, but guess what? You're in a new Matrix. New code is here, man. And that's why you can't beat my bullet time versus your bullet time. That's why you're weaker here than what you used to be. And like her, freakishly enough, she just woke up. But no, they don't even go into something like that. That would have made more sense. Or scratch that, make Smith the new god when he awakens. He is. No, he is. But they don't focus on that at all. Just make Smith the freaking one. Because we all know the fan theory made more sense than anything else that came out from the last three movies, including this, and Smith would have been a better.
Right. The thing is, though,
he was just a shadow character. He was Noob Saibot.
He was able to counter the analyst's powers. Moving freely while everyone else is frozen. The analyst couldn't.
The doctor.
Why? Well, they call him the analyst.
They call him an analyst? I thought they called him doctor.
Well, he was both, but
yeah,
that was frustrating. That part.
Again, I'm gonna say that was part of the reasons why I didn't like those scenes, because knowing the background that brought those action scenes makes it more frustrating, because A, it doesn't make sense. B, it takes away the lore that was built over years. And then C, even if you subtract that, those action scenes aren't that great nonetheless.
Again, it could not uphold or outdo the original.
I would say the CGI that was used was better, but that's because technology is better for the CGI. But there was nothing there that wowed us.
What were CGI? Because I didn't.
They did the mirror stuff. There was the mirror stuff, and there was some.
Well, that was just minor. To me, the mirror stuff was still reminiscent of the original, but
like the escape scene with Morpheus, when Morpheus was escaping at the beginning, it was kind of reminding me of Inception, as they were trying to run through the hallways and and they're going through all these other areas. It just didn't work. It was kind of it felt choppy. They had shaky cam. I'm like, why do you have shaky cam? That doesn't belong here.
Well, here's the thing. This is where they messed up. Let me go over my.
Yeah, I went on a tangent
It's
hard. I'm
okay.
sorry,
It's all
people.
right. Okay, The Great Escape.
That was your worst or greatest.
Well, it was a nice action scene. What I liked about it was, like you said, a certain aspect of it. And for me, the aspect of was where the analysts had people jump out of buildings and becoming human bombs.
Instead of having agents in the world, he just made multiple bots. Yeah, you don't know who is a person that's plugged into the Matrix versus an NPC. You know, at a whim, snap his finger, that NPC turns into a killer. So they're all sleeper agents, basically. Which is actually, that concept-wise, is really cool.
Right, and I like that. It just brought another level of intensity to it, and it was pretty grotesque kind of thing. You see the bodies hitting and getting splat.
It's kind of like zombie-like, also.
Oh, I thought of you because I know you're a fan of Train to Busan,
Train to Busan. Oh, can't even say it now.
Busan.
Train to yeah, I guess Busan. Now I can't say it.
I never saw the movie, but I know it's about zombies. I was wondering if, when you saw that scene, if you felt that as well.
I would say I didn't at the moment I watched that scene. Did not come to mind. But now that you mention it, I can see. Granted, Train to Busan didn't have like guns being used in it, but the fact that everybody swarmed in on them. Train to Busan is
Asian.
Well, they had some Asian people there, but they
were in Japan. They were in Tokyo.
Yeah, and Train to Busan was a Korean film, but yes, technicality, bro. I'm just saying the parallels with it are there. I do see the parallels with it. And it's like you see people wearing like the sick mask on there, so it's like it kind of does parallel when you mention it. In Train to Busan, they don't move like the Romero zombies, like where they're like they move like Day of the Dead or Dawn of the Dead, where they're just quickly rushing people and whatnot. It felt like that, although they were grabbing some weapons too.
I did like the reunion of Smith and Neo. The same thing where
the second part, again, the first one, they didn't really do too much.
No, I'm talking about the second part. I call it a reunion because
he officially says
because Smith also fights Morpheus and then he fights Neo. Did like certain aspects there. They brought it back. It was like nostalgia in a way because I appreciate what they were doing. I was like, okay, because look at the pillars. Very similar to the subway scene, especially when he slams Neo and does rapid punches.
Well, actually, the rapid punches was also like that with him and Morpheus. It was the same technique they used in both scenes.
And I have mixed with the dojo. I like it because Neo looked cleaner.
Okay.
His technique looked cleaner in his movements. What I did not like about the reunion and the dojo scene, it was that a lot of times the camera was way too close. So you couldn't really appreciate all the moves as intended. When you have the camera up close on the action, you're missing out a lot. The action scenes in the original, the cameras are relatively far away.
Yeah, like in a Kung Fu film, it had the same placement where you could see both like full body movement.
Right. That took me away. I was disappointed with the opening scene. I was disappointed because they didn't use
because they had a new Trini.
Right. And I can understand because after knowing why is because is a version of the Matrix of how he remembered. And also cut out the jump kick.
Yeah, they did. Well, they cut out a couple things. They cut out like when she broke the arm and the freeze of the jump kick.
And she in the part where she does a standing kick to the guy behind her, they cut all that out.
I mean, technically, if you want to make the argument, like in reality, he wasn't there. He's just remembering that was a moment for her. He was probably told by her or something like that. So he just recapped it to put it in the game.
But the dialogue of Smith and the cop was almost
verbatim. And you know what? And you can make the argument that he has that memory because he merged with Smith like on 2 occasions. And it's funny that you say that because they show legitimate clips from the first movie at multiple points in the movie, not just like this is the Van Damme recap moment here. No, there are several points in the movie where like we're just gonna play the clip from the first movie,
right? But that's supposed to be the video game portion
exactly
that we're seeing.
So why couldn't they do that at the beginning?
Right, when I told you before doing this interview, this review, if they did a CGI skin over the video. It would have made it more believable or less confusing to know that this is a video game or not. If they did that, it would have been made more sense because then Morpheus would have looked like Lawrence Fishburne. That Neo would not have looked like Keanu because it's not the exact
It's a video
thing.
game.
It would have
Yeah.
been, it would have been, yeah, the video game portion. It would have been a separation.
True. Plus, it will
What?
you wouldn't see
Uh,
the contrast
uh,
of video quality because you're watching a movie. If you watch it on HBO Max, it's like in 4K, and they show the clips from The Matrix, and it's like you could tell the video quality is like 1080p in a 4K movie. There was a purpose to this, and I don't remember why, but the original Matrix movies were all done with a green hue
right. That's because,
of the code.
and remember, the analysts took over to make this Matrix. Because remember when we see Neo or Anderson looking at his screen, says that's an old code. He used the old code to make the modals. And after watching
Reloaded and
Revolutions,
Revolutions.
at the end, there's a rainbow sky. So it was already done.
Oh yeah.
A rainbow sky, and then the analyst at the end says, "Make rainbow sky. Do whatever you want. I don't care." So as a callback, as like you said before, but in a bad way.
Oh yeah. And I did love Neil Patrick Harris, but
Oh, he was great. I
he
think
was great.
awesome.
But tell me, at the end, did he not turn into Barney? He turned into Barney at the very end of The Matrix. You know I'm right. When Trini was slapping the crap out of him, and she was
Right.
pretty much killing him and resurrecting him with a snap, which that was new.
I have
He
my
was
own
literally
problems.
full Barney mode.
This movie was not needed. It was a money grab.
100%. 100%.
Granted, they most likely will do spin-offs or a sequel. Shouldn't. I know I won't see it, especially if the action is less and less. After the first original Matrix,
hmm
every installment has been weaker, less thrilling, less exciting.
I mean, to their credit, they didn't use CGI people for fighting.
Well, they did with the splat.
With this, oh yeah, I mean that, but I don't count that.
But I know what you're saying, but like in
yeah.
the fighting
Yeah.
aspect, right?
Again, going into the action sequences, like you said, it didn't feel as intense, didn't feel as dramatic or thrilling. Matrix is one of those things that when people there's a literal scene like, what is the Matrix? What makes Matrix important? And they're talking about all the things, but they're not really hitting some of the things at the same time. When people talk about the Matrix and they look at the Matrix, they're looking at, yes, bullet time, how it messes with your mind and whatnot. Overall, every installment of the Matrix, they try something new. They try to bring something new to the table, whether it's good or bad. Here, they don't really bring nothing new other than the fact they now are trying to make this more into, it has to be a love story for all 4 movies. We accepted the love story in the first 3 as a byproduct, but not the core reasoning.
I don't think it was a love story for the original 3.
No, I think it was I personally go for that Smith theory 100%.
Well, in the original,
Standalone
Neo
is
the
good.
one.
Yeah, and the original is
He's
just
the-
good.
He's the one.
hmm
Then you have with the second and third sequel, it makes it more like Smith is the one, or 2 sides of the same coin.
Yeah,
Here, it becomes a straight out love story.
yeah, they pretty much do. hmm
Trinity was not in danger to be saved, except for that one time where the new bullet time was explained and shown. Which wasn't really something new. We've seen that type of technology or special effect in the X-Men film.
Yeah, but
Right.
kind of like what they were doing with the concept wise, because like he'll go wrap it and then not wrap it at times.
It's not as exciting. It was never exciting as it was with bullet time in the original.
True.
And they didn't really use bullet time, I don't think, in the sequels either.
No,
Well,
only with
they did the multi-Smiths. They did bullet time a little bit there.
Okay. I will say this. For this guy being a cross between Smith and Morpheus, when it came to him in a fight scene, I was anticipating, okay, you're a cross between the two. Hopefully you get the fighting techniques of the both, and maybe you're like an actual legitimate fighter that you will come to the table. And then there was the dojo scene, which he has better technique than Lawrence Fishburne did. I'll give him credit for that. I just didn't enjoy the dojo scene, oddly enough. And then the next fight scene that he was in was with the Frenchman.
He didn't fight the Frenchman.
No, the Frenchman was there. Yeah, he was heckling in the background. But it was all the other programs that were there. And he's fighting all the other programs.
He fights Smith.
But Smith, like, just pretty much shrugs him off. You would think he would have a little bit more oomph behind himself.
I mean, the Matrix, you can look at it so many different ways in the sense of how it relates to politics, religion, computer science, all that stuff, as well as action, where you and I, what we fell in love with in the first place.
Yeah.
Because it has that action and anime aspect to it. It has a really good story, relatively easy to follow, where this, nothing new was brought to the table.
I kind of like the idea where he's like, emotions are easier to control and you get more output from emotions. So that's why we're focusing on this aspect. And like, I'll just feed the populace. No one wants to leave because I just give them what they want. That's where I like that concept when they were making it meta, and like I could see the parallels between now in our society versus what they're describing there. But then when they start going to the love aspect, that's where like, you're taking me out. Bugs, when they first introduce her and she's escaping the agents and she does like the flip off the building and she's like flipping through the car over the cars and whatnot, I'm like, oh, well maybe the guys will be able to do more in the Matrix. But that's the last cool thing that she really does. And that was at the beginning. So like, you're right. There's like barely any slow motion scenes that were really cool or any stunts that were outlandish.
Neo, he hardly fights and does nothing but force pushes.
And even at that, not even that hard. He usually just does like I'm gonna force push a force field like about like maybe 2 inches away from me, and that's it. And the only time that he does more than that was the dojo scene where he literally explodes the building, and he doesn't even do that again.
Well, he does it when Smith
he
threatens
throws
him.
he throws Smith out out of the building too.
But he only does that because Trinity was threatened.
But he
doesn't
do that in the cafe.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't do that in the Great Escape.
You're right. The thing is, like, he comes back to life, reawoken. He's younger than Niobe, parents wise. They're the same age or such.
Yeah.
Dude, you have all the telltales of you're the one, or you have it in you, but you refuse to believe still to this freaking day. Dude, you were blinded, but now you can see.
You were dead.
See, for me, I never really thought he was dead.
MPH is like, we literally resurrected you.
No, I understand that, but the thing is, he was always jacked in.
I get it.
He was never really where like Trinity, she was dead. She got impaled.
Yeah, she died.
When did they save her? Because it was like 3 hours until
and
had to do what he had to do.
And they didn't say like it took a long time to even bring him back. I agree.
So, because he was always jacked in. So
I'm willing to accept that because like his mind could have been still in the Matrix.
Right, because remember they were trying to find him, they couldn't find him, even though his name is still Anderson. His code was different. That's the thing. We gave our ratings on the action, I guess, or
if you can't tell, we did not like the action.
Yeah, none of them are really good. The thing is, though, when Trinity woke up, she was in it 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Once she realized who she was in it, where Neo was awoken longer than her and still had doubts, even though he was reminded what he did, who he was.
He knew what he could do.
Right. They're saying that he needed Trinity to be the one, where she didn't need him to be the one. She was flying without him.
That's another thing. It's because we mentioned this. Okay, so 2 things. Bugs, when she snapped out of it and she got out the Matrix, she saw the suicide attempt that he tried to do. Let me rephrase that. Or one of the times he tried to break the code and get out. And it was at like the roof party. As they recap it in the movie, it was an attempt on his own self, as what they told him. But she's like, you didn't fall, or you actually walked on air.
Which is weird. I'm surprised it didn't one of the previews. I saw, I think maybe the original one, he's walking
on air.
Where in the movie, he just has 1 foot still on the building, 1 foot on the thing.
Yeah, probably like a deleted scene.
But it's kind of funny that she represents also the thing, one of the first things we see in the first movie where Neo's in the office being ridiculed and he's looking outside the window and the person's doing the windows.
That's what I'm saying.
It's Matrix redid.
That's the weird thing because, okay, so she did see him essentially fly before he got deja vu'd. And then when he jumps off the city...
Not that he flew, but he floated. He never fell.
Semantics.
So,
because
there's a difference.
Why didn't float when he jumped off the building at the end? He was being held up after the MPH scene, not touching hands. They're both flying separately. And I'm like, if they left him handicapped, I would have been like, okay, he just can't do it because he's in a new Matrix. And that would have been something I would have mentally given him, a handicap. But now he's like, I'm God mode.
It did not do Smith justice in this film. Even though he is powerful, he doesn't want to be the main. He wants to be a multiple player.
And that was the funny thing. That last scene, he goes, he's like, what's really funny He's like, really, anybody could have been the one. Didn't have to be you. It could have been me, but really, I could be anybody. And then he turns into, he does his agent maneuver, and he returns the body of someone else.
I would like to, when he woke up, to talk like Agent Smith.
He kind of
Personally,
talked like the Agent Smith in The Office when they first
in the
introduced
beginning,
him.
no,
Yeah.
but after waking up,
Yeah.
he talked like that.
If they
Would've
found a
been nice.
guy like Reloaded and Revolutions, a guy who could cosplay the impersonation of Agent Smith better, because that guy did a phenomenal job impersonating Agent Smith.
And it would have been nice to see that here.
Yeah. Like when he goes, Mr. Anderson, it's not the same tone. He's like, Mr. Anderson. No. He's like, Mr. Anderson. Lower tone. Bring it down.
Anyway, let's wrap this up because now it's not becoming an action review, but a movie review. And
What are you going to rate it?
one and done.
Waste of time. Don't even bother. From the deepest of my core, I love Keanu Reeves. He's the nicest guy. I'm a big fan of The Matrix in general. This movie's garbage. I'm sorry, guys. And this is probably going to be the angriest review I've done in a long time since Army of the Dead. And not happy even watching this on a stream. I stand by my statement that this feels like a movie that was meant for streaming. I would have been upset even more if I paid $16 to watch this as a ticket in a theater with people, and I was upset watching it on my big screen TV here.
In the sense of George Lucas with the prequels, sometimes it's best to let other people tell it.
Yeah.
Like with George Lucas and the prequels, he directed all three of the prequels. In my opinion, they're all crap. Well, Phantom 1 was a little better overall, but I think overall they're horrendous. Where like he did the New Hope, he had his professor do part 2 of Empire, another guy do Return of the Jedi. Yeah, so they have two different views and opinions, and it became good in their own right. Where the Wachowskis, they directed all three of the original, and then Laura Wachowski, she did this one. I think you got to know when to let go and let it be told by someone else. That could have been a better film.
Potentially.
I saw where they were going, but the final execution was blah. If they made it in a way that Trinity had to be rescued, like Morpheus had to be rescued in the first one, I would appreciate it more. Where the thing is, she saved herself. Once like the breadcrumbs were dropped, she was able to do it.
And you know what? I was hopeful for it. I saw the trailer. I liked the trailer. Getting our Neo back.
I was excited because when he did the pump fist, I was like, oh snap, he's gonna unleash. Then Trinity saves him.
I'm fine with a concept of Trinity saving him. I just don't like the execution of how.
All in all, this movie was a love story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. It could be a love story, but it could have been good. Rocky is basically a love story. Boxing's in it. Yeah, it's a tell the underdog, but it's basically a love story. It's a love story as soon as he wakes up. Well, no, it's actually a love story prior before he wakes up because he's been going to the same cafe.
A little bit obsessive. Come on, let's be honest. The fact that he's right. I've been watching you all this time, and he's like, in their eyes, he's an old man that's balding.
Well, she's older too. They show a reflection of her.
I missed the reflection.
Is on the table, yeah, while she's talking with him.
Wouldn't that make her look older than her husband at the time? Because her husband looked kind of young.
He's the original director of John Wick, as well as his original stunt double for The Matrix.
Again, the things that don't make sense.
Right. They look at him as an old guy, and she's older, or maybe she was a blonde.
They might have made her a blonde. I would have to rewatch that scene, but I don't want to. I say I saw it once, but technically I saw it twice. The first time I fell asleep.
Let's cut it here.
Guys, if you watched the movie, let us know what your thoughts were. And tell us if you're on the same page as we are.
Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also hit that like button.
Ring that bell,
next
baby.
Time,
ring that bell.
Until next time, will be the next time. I'm Angel.
I'm Adan.
Love you.
Love you.